She tasted dirt and blood, her cheek pressed against the wooden planks of Main Street while a wealthy man's polished boots stopped inches from her face. "You see what happens when a woman forgets her place," he announced to the crowd. 50 people watched. Not one stepped forward. Not one said a word. Elena Moore was about to die in that street, beaten, broken, and completely alone. Her husband was dead. Her home was gone. And the most powerful man in town had decided she belonged in the dirt. But then, hoofbeats. A stranger's voice cut through the silence. "That's enough." What happened next would transform a dying woman into a force that even the richest man in Texas couldn't break. But first, she had to survive the night. This story proves one powerful truth. You are never too broken to rise again. Real strength isn't about never falling. It's about getting back up every single time. Sometimes all it takes is one person who refuses to look away to change everything. If you believe everyone deserves a second chance, hit that like button. Share this with someone who needs to hear it today. And subscribe so you never miss a story that reminds you, survivors don't just survive. They learn how to truly live. The dirt in Elena Moore's mouth tasted like iron and blood. Her cheek was pressed hard against the street, the rough wooden planks digging into her skin. Above her, a man's voice carried on, smooth and certain. He was a man who had never been told no in his life. He wanted the whole town to hear him. "You see what happens," he announced, "when a woman forgets her place?" Elena couldn't see much. Just the wood grain of the boardwalk about 6 inches from her face, and the dark stains spreading out from under her. Every short breath felt like a knife in her ribs. Her left eye was swollen completely shut. Sometime during the beating, she had bitten clear through her lip. Now it throbbed with every beat of her heart. The September sun was relentless, baking the back of her neck. It was a merciless heat that pulled the life right out of you. She'd quit trying to stand up after the third kick. "Anybody got something to say?" The man's expensive leather boots appeared at the edge of her vision. They were polished, even in all this dust. "Anybody here think she deserves better?" Only silence answered him. Not the quiet of an empty street, but the heavy silence of a crowd choosing to see nothing. Elena had been in Stillwater, Texas for 11 months. She had learned fast that silence could be its own kind of weapon. Her husband, Daniel, had been gone for 10 of those months. He had come to Stillwater with big dreams of building a general store and a future for them. But Daniel was a gentleman, and that was a weakness in a hard town like this. 3 weeks after they opened their doors, he confronted the wrong men about money they owed. They beat him in this very street, and in the terrible heat, his injuries festered. He died holding Elena's hand, saying he was sorry for bringing her to such a place. The creditors took the store within a month. Everything they owned was gone. Elena was left with nothing. She tried to find work sewing or cooking, but Stillwater was not a welcoming place for a woman on her own. The good families didn't want a widow around, and the saloon owners wanted things from her she would not give. Men with power, men like Clayton Voss, whose boots were now inches from her face, saw a woman alone as something to be taken. She had told him no. She said no when he trapped her behind the store. She said no when he offered her money for her company. And she said no when he told her she didn't have a choice. When he tried to kiss her, she slapped him. That was 2 hours ago. He left angry, and for a moment she had been foolish enough to hope that was the end of it. But Clayton Voss was not a man who forgave things. He found her an hour later walking back to her room at the boarding house. He had 3 men with him. They all had the same look of casual cruelty on their faces. She tried to run, but they dragged her into the middle of Main Street. Clayton made a public show of it. He shouted lies for everyone to hear, calling her a thief and a loose woman. Then he hit her. The first slap snapped her head to the side. The second was a fist to her stomach that dropped her to her knees. After that, it was just a blur of fists and boots while Clayton preached to the town about her punishment, and the whole town just watched. She could feel them there on the edge of her fading sight. Shopkeepers in their doorways and women holding their children, all of them watching, all of them silent. "Get up," Clayton said, his voice now filled with annoyance. "Get up so we can finish this right." She could not move. Her body had given up on her. "I said, get up." A boot hit her shoulder, rolling her onto her back. The sky above was a blinding white. She closed her good eye, waiting for the next blow. But it never came. Instead, a new sound cut through the air. The jingle of a horse's bridle. Then a voice, low and rough like the land itself, said, "That's enough." The words were simple and final. Elena forced her eye open. A man sat on a big bay horse about 20 feet away. He was broad-shouldered, and his clothes looked like they had seen hard miles. His hat was pulled down low, hiding his face in shadow, but she could see his eyes. They were as cold and gray as a winter sky. He was looking right at Clayton Voss. Clayton turned, and his confident expression faltered. He clearly knew this man. "This ain't your business, Rowan." The name Rowan meant nothing to Elena, but it changed the feeling in the crowd. The silence was now thick with tension, not indifference. "Seems like it is," Rowan said, his voice calm but carrying. "Looks to me like you're beating a woman in the street and calling it justice." Clayton's hand moved toward the pistol on his belt. "This is town business. She's a thief who struck me." Rowan's voice was cold. "Under any law that matters, you're a coward and a liar." A gasp went through the crowd. Clayton's face turned a dark shade of red. "You better watch your mouth, Rowan. You ain't who you used to be. You're just another rancher now, and not a very good one. You have no authority here." "Don't need authority to stop a beating," Rowan said. He shifted in the saddle, and his coat fell open just enough to show the revolver at his hip. "And I don't need permission to call a man what he is. You making this your fight?" "It already is," Rowan answered. His gaze fell on Elena for a second, and she saw something flicker in his eyes. It was not pity. It was something harder, like recognition. He looked like a man who had seen this kind of thing before and hated it. "The minute I rode in and saw you kicking a woman while grown men just stood there and watched." Clayton let out a short, forced laugh. "So what, you gonna take her? Make her your problem?" "If that's what it takes." "She's nothing, Rowan. No family, no money. A dead woman walking. It's your funeral." "Then we're done talking," Rowan said. He swung down from his horse in one smooth motion. He walked right up and stood between Clayton and Elena. "You got something else to say? Say it now. If not, step aside." For a long moment, Clayton just stood there, his hand hovering over his gun. You could almost see him weighing his chances. Finally, he dropped his hand. "She's yours then, your problem. Don't come crying to me when she robs you." "Get out of my sight," Rowan said quietly. "Before I stop being polite." Clayton opened his mouth to say something, then thought better of it. He turned and walked away. His men followed him, and the crowd just melted away, leaving Elena and the stranger alone in the silent street. Else to be. In a heartbeat, the street was bone empty, leaving just Elena on the ground and the stranger above her. Rowan knelt down slow, his hands where she could see them. His face was rougher than she first thought, maybe 40 years old, carved by a hard life under the sun. A thin scar cut from his eyebrow to his hairline. But his eyes, when they met hers, held a surprising kindness. "Can you hear me?" he asked. She gave a small nod which sent a fresh wave of pain through her head. "Good." He used his bandana to gently press against the blood on her face. "I am fixin' to get you somewhere safe. Can you stand?" "I do not know," she whispered, her voice a dry rasp. "That is all right." He scooped her up like she was nothing but a feather. "I have got you. You're going to be okay." She wanted to believe the certainty in his voice, but trust was a luxury she had lost long ago. "Why?" she managed to ask as he walked toward his horse. "Why help me?" Rowan looked down, and for a second a deep sadness broke through his tough exterior. Because no one helped someone I loved, he said quietly, and I have paid for it every single day. He set her on his horse, then climbed up behind her, his arm wrapped firm around her waist, holding her steady. She felt safe for the first time in what felt like a lifetime. Where are you taking me? My ranch. It is about an hour from here. You can heal up, and then we will figure things out. I cannot pay you. I did not ask for pay. He nudged the horse forward, careful of her wounds. Just do me a favor, and hold on. Can you do that? She did not answer. Instead, she just leaned back against his warmth and closed her very eyes. She let him carry her away from still water, away from the town that just watched, away from a life that had left her bleeding in the dust. The town vanished behind them as they rode toward the endless brown hills under a hot, white sky. Elena drifted through the ride in a haze of heat and pain. She was vaguely aware of climbing into higher country that smelled of cedar and dry grass. Once she felt a canteen at her lips and drank without opening her eyes. But mostly she just hurt. The pain in her ribs was a sharp reminder of the beating. But worse was the pain of knowing that not a single person had stepped in to help her. If this man had not come along, she would have died in that street, forgotten. Almost there, Rowan's voice rumbled against her back. When they finally stopped, he lifted her down with that same careful strength. She opened her eyes to a simple, sturdy house made of rough timber. Nearby stood a barn and corrals. It was a working ranch that had seen better days. I know it is not much, he said, carrying her inside, but it is solid, and it is safe. The main room was clean but sparse, with plain, well-made furniture. It felt like a place where someone survived but did not truly live. He carried her to a small bedroom and laid her gently on the bed. I need to check on those injuries, he said, lighting a lamp as evening fell. This part might hurt some. It already hurts, she managed to say. I know. He sat beside the bed, his calloused hands surprisingly gentle as he checked her face. His expression was all business. Your cheekbone is likely broken, he said. And your ribs are the real problem. He carefully felt her side, each touch making her flinch. At least 2 broken ribs, he announced. Maybe 3. We will have to wrap them tight. You will need to stay still for a few weeks while they mend. He returned from a cabinet with clean cloth, water, and a bottle of whiskey. We have to get you cleaned up and wrap those ribs, or they will heal wrong. For the next hour, Rowan worked with a practiced efficiency, cleaning and bandaging her wounds. He moved like a man who had done this plenty of times before. When he finished, he covered her with a blanket. You should get some sleep now. Why, she whispered, needing to understand. You do not know me. Rowan was quiet for a long moment. I had a wife and a daughter, he finally said, his voice heavy with old sorrow. We had a small farm back in Kansas. A wealthy man in town wanted our land. He was as mean as a rattlesnake. We told him no. One day he and his boys came to the farm while I was away. When I got back, he paused, his jaw tight. They had burned the house. They had taken my family from me. The whole town knew who did it, but he had money and power. Nobody would speak up. Nobody would help. So he walked free. Tears slid down Elena's cheeks. I hunted him for 3 years, Rowan went on. Found him in Colorado and put an end to it. Then I ran. Came to Texas and built this place, thinking I could leave the past behind. But you cannot outrun what you have lost. He looked right at her then, his eyes full of a hollow pain she understood all too well. When I saw you in that street, with everyone just watching, I saw my wife. I could not be one of the people who just looked away again. I am so sorry, Elena whispered. He stood to leave. I am sorry for what happened to you too. Get some rest. I will be in the next room. Rowan. He paused at the door. Thank you, she said, for not looking away. He gave a single sharp nod and then, softly closed the door. Elena lay in the dark, listening to the quiet sounds of the ranch. A horse nickered outside. The wind sighed. In the main room, a chair creaked as Rowan sat down to keep watch. She was too tired for fear and too broken for doubt. For the first time in months, she fell asleep without dreaming of dying alone in the dust. Morning arrived with the smell of coffee. When Elena woke up, every muscle screamed in protest. For a second, she did not know where she was. Then the memory of the beating, the stranger, and the long ride returned. She forced both of her eyes open. Her eye was swollen something fierce when she woke up in a small bedroom. Morning light was coming through some plain old curtains. A glass of water sat on a table next to a clean dress that was not hers. She could see into the main room where Rowan was cooking at the stove, his back to her. The smell of it made her stomach growl something awful. When she tried to sit up, a sharp pain shot through her ribs, and a gasp escaped her lips. Rowan was by her side in a heartbeat. "Easy now," he said, steadying her. "Don't you be moving too fast. Them ribs need time." "I need to use the outhouse," she said, her voice sounding thin and weak. "I'll help you." He took most of her weight, and they made the slow, painful walk out back. He waited a ways off, then helped her back inside to a chair at the table. "How you feeling?" he asked, turning back to his cooking. "Like I got stomped in the street," she said, then added, "Sorry, that was just the plain truth." He looked back, and she thought she saw the hint of a smile. "That's about right," he said. "You're going to feel like you've been rode hard and put up wet for a while. But you're alive, and you're going to stay that way." He set a plate of eggs and bacon in front of her, along with a cup of hot coffee. Every bite hurt, but the food was good, and she was starving. "The dress," she asked between bites. "Where'd it come from?" "It was my wife's," he said, his voice flat. "Been packed in a trunk for 8 years. Figured she'd want someone to get some use out of it." Eleanor looked down at the simple cotton dress. It was a sturdy, practical thing a woman would wear for ranch work. "Thank you. I'll be careful with it." "It's yours now. Everything she had is just collecting dust." They ate without talking for a spell. Elena watched him in the morning light. The man looked worn out. His dark brown hair was getting gray around the edges, and the lines by his eyes told stories of looking out over long, sunny distances. He moved with a purpose, never wasting a single motion. "What happens now?" she finally asked. Rowan put his coffee down. "Well, that's up to you. You can stay here as long as it takes to mend. After that, if you want to leave, I'll stake you some money and supplies. Or you could stay. I could use the help around this place. I'm running cattle mostly by myself." "You'd pay me?" "Room, board, and wages, same as any other ranch hand." Elena looked around the simple cabin, then back at him. "Why would you do all that? You don't know me from Adam." "I know you stood up to Clayton Voss. That takes grit," he said, meeting her gaze. "And I know you didn't deserve what he did to you. That's enough for me. What if he comes looking for me?" "Then he'll have to deal with me," he said, stating it like a fact. "And if he's got any sense, he won't. Clayton's a bully, but he ain't stupid. He knows better than to push me." "Because of Kansas? Because of what you did there?" Rowan's face hardened. "Because I've got nothing left to lose. That makes a man dangerous in ways money can't buy." Elena thought on that. She ought to be scared of this man, a stranger who admitted he'd killed folks before. She should be planning to run the second she could. But looking at him, seeing the sorrow he wore like a heavy coat, she knew one thing for sure. Caleb Rowan wasn't a danger to her. He was a danger for her. And that changed everything. "I'd like to stay," she said, her voice quiet. "If the offer's real." "It's real." "Then I accept. And I'll earn my keep. Soon as I'm able, "You'll heal first," he cut in. "We can talk about work later. Right now, your only job is getting better." "I'm not used to being useless." You're not useless. You're hurt. There's a big difference. He stood up and gathered their plates. I need to go check on the herd. I'll be gone most of the afternoon, so you get some rest. There's food in the cabinet if you get hungry. Don't you go doing anything foolish like trying to clean up. You sound like you're used to giving orders, she said with a little bit of sass. He almost smiled. I'm used to folks not listening, but I'm asking all the same. After he rode off, Elena sat there watching the hills. This was rough country, the kind that could break a person. But it was beautiful, too. She thought about Clayton Voss and the life she'd lost. She should have been angry, but mostly she just felt worn to a frazzle. And for the first time in a long, long while, she felt a little flicker of hope. She carefully stood up and made her way back to the bedroom. The bed was calling her name, and she sank into it, pulling the blanket up. Sleep took her quickly, with the sound of the Texas wind whistling outside. Elena healed up slow but sure. That first week was mostly a haze of sleeping and hurting. Rowan was a good man, always there when she needed him, but giving her plenty of room. He didn't talk much, which she appreciated. Silence was easier than trying to explain the mess her life had become. But as she got her strength back, they started to talk more. It started with simple things like questions about the ranch. She learned he ran about 200 head of cattle on a spread that could handle more. She learned he did it all himself, from mending fences to checking water holes. And she learned he'd built this whole place with his own 2 hands. Why cattle? She asked him one evening as they watched the sun go down. Seemed like honest work, he said. And cows don't judge you on your past. They just want to be fed and kept safe. Is that what you wanted? Something that didn't judge? He was quiet for a good long while. Maybe at first. Now I reckon I just wanted something I could keep alive. That hit her hard. She thought about all the things she had lost. About her husband Daniel dying in her arms. I couldn't keep anything alive either, she said softly. My husband, my marriage, almost myself. But you're here now, he said. That's got to count for something. Does it? Or am I just putting off the end? Rowan looked over at her, his eyes full of that same fire she'd seen back in town. You survived something that should have put you in the ground. That ain't nothing. What you do now is up to you. But don't you ever mistake staying alive for giving up. They ain't the same thing. By the second week, Elena was strong enough to help with chores. She started small, washing dishes and sweeping floors. Rowan tried to stop her, but she wouldn't have it. You said I could earn my keep, she told him. Let me start. You're still healing. I'm always going to be healing from something, she said. Might as well be useful while I'm at it. He gave in, and she got to work. The house had been lonely, not dirty, just lacking a woman's touch. Slowly, she started to bring some life back into it. She washed curtains, scrubbed floors, and organized the kitchen. Rowan just watched, like he'd forgotten what a real home felt like. It's starting to look like a home again, he said one afternoon. It is a home, she said gently. It just needed someone to remember that. The third week, trouble came riding in. Elena was hanging laundry out back, feeling stronger every day. Then she heard the sound of horses coming up the drive. Her heart started to pound against her bruised ribs. She'd been so wrapped up in this quiet ranch life, she'd almost forgotten the world outside. She peeked around the corner of the house and saw 3 riders. It wasn't Clayton Voss, thank God, but they weren't friendly faces either. Said, might as well be useful. He finally agreed. She poured everything she had into the work, bringing warmth back into the neglected house. She washed curtains and scrubbed floors until they shined. Rowan watched, looking almost surprised, as if he'd forgotten what a real home felt like. One afternoon he said, it's starting to look like a home. She smiled. It always was. It just needed remembering. Then, in the third week, trouble rode in. Elena was hanging laundry when she heard the sound of approaching horses. Her heart pounded against her ribs. She'd been so wrapped up in their quiet life, she'd almost forgotten that the world outside these hills was still a dangerous place. She peeked around the house and saw 3 riders making their way up the drive. It was not Clayton Voss. She would have known his expensive horse and the proud way he sat on it. But out here, strangers were nearly as bad. Fear rose in her throat. Rowan came out of the barn, a shovel in his hand. He moved deliberately, showing no alarm, but Elena saw the tension in his shoulders. He leaned the shovel against the barn wall, well within reach, and walked forward to meet them. Elena stayed hidden by the house, watching. The man in the lead was big, with a sheriff's badge pinned on his vest. The other 2 looked like the kind of men who were comfortable with trouble. "Caleb Rowan," the sheriff called out, his voice clear across the yard. "Been a spell, Sheriff Marcus," Rowan replied, his tone steady. "What brings you way out here? Got a question about a woman. Heard you took one from Stillwater a few weeks back." Elena held her breath. "What's it to you?" Rowan asked. "Clayton Voss filed a complaint. Claims you took a woman who stole from him. Wants her back to face justice." "Clayton Voss is a liar," Rowan said, his voice flat. "That woman didn't steal a thing. He beat her in the street because she wouldn't do what he wanted. I just stopped him from killing her." Sheriff Marcus shifted in his saddle. "That's your story?" "That's the truth. You want a different story, go ask the 50 folks who just stood there and watched." "Funny thing, I already did. Nobody seems to remember it your way." "Memory gets picky when a rich man is asking the questions," Rowan said. The sheriff's jaw went tight. "You always did have a smart mouth, Rowan. Got you in trouble before, if I recall." "I recall it different. I recall getting in trouble for killing a man who had it coming. Does that still stick in your craw? What bothers me is you thinking you're above the law. The law didn't help my wife, or my daughter. The law just watched them burn." Rowan's voice turned to ice, and the sheriff's men shifted in their saddles. "So don't you talk to me about the law like it's holy. It's a tool, and it's only as good as the man holding it. That's dangerous talk. It's honest talk. Now, are you going to tell me what you really want, or are we going to keep on dancing?" Sheriff Marcus looked past Rowan, right at the house. Elena knew he saw her. She made herself stand tall and meet his eyes. "That her?" he asked. "That's Elena Moore. She works for me now." "Voss says her name is Elena, says she's a thief and a working girl. Voss says a lot of things to cover up the kind of man he is. A man who figures his money gives him the right to hurt people. You prepared to swear to that? In front of God and anybody else who'll listen." Rowan took a step forward and the horses shied back. "But I'll tell you what I'm not prepared to do, Sheriff. I'm not going to let you take her. She stays right here under my protection. Anybody with a problem with that can take it up with me." The threat was as clear as day. Sheriff Marcus looked at Rowan for a long moment, weighing his choices. Finally, he looked straight at Elena. "Ma'am," he called out, "are you staying here because you want to?" Her throat was bone dry, but she found her voice. "Yes, I am." "Is he treating you right?" "Better than anyone in Stillwater ever did." The sheriff gave a slow nod and turned back to Rowan. "Voss ain't gonna like this. I don't much care what Voss likes. He's got friends. He's got money and a mean streak. Neither one of those things impresses me. You're making a powerful enemy, Rowan. Wouldn't be the first time." Rowan's hand was loose, but the idea of his gun hung in the air like smoke. "Are we done here, Sheriff?" Marcus pulled on his reins. "For now, but I'll be back if there's more trouble. You know where to find me." The 3 men rode off. Elena didn't realize she was shaking until they were gone. Rowan walked back to her. "You all right?" "I brought trouble to you," she said, her voice small. "I'm sorry." "Trouble was already here," he said, looking her straight in the eye. "Question is, can you live with it? Because Voss isn't done with you, and that means he's not done with me." "I could leave, go somewhere he'd never find me." "You could, or you could stay and let me handle him." "Why?" The word was sharper than she meant it to be. "Why would you risk all this for a stranger?" Rowan was quiet for a long moment. "Because you deserve better than to spend your life running," he said softly. "And because I'm sick and tired of watching good people get hurt while bad men get their way. That's not a good enough reason to take on a man like Voss. It's the only reason that matters." He started for the barn, then stopped. "If you want to leave, Elena, I won't stop you. I'll give you a horse and supplies. But if you stay, we do this as a team. No more saying you're sorry. You're not a burden. You're just someone who got dealt a bad hand, and I aim to help you play a better one if you'll let me." She watched him go, her thoughts spinning. Her gut told her to run. But something else, something that had been growing since that day in Stillwater, told her to stay. It was the hope that she could finally stop running, the hope that she could stand and fight beside someone who cared if she lived or died. That night at the dinner table, she finally spoke. "I want to stay," she said. "But what happens when Voss comes here with his men?" Rowan put his fork down and met her gaze. "Then we'll deal with it." "That's not an answer. It's the only one I have. I can't promise you'll be safe, Elena. What I can promise is that they'll have to go through me to get to you. And you won't be alone." "You're talking about killing. If that's what it comes to, yes. Does that not scare you?" He gave a short, bitter laugh. "Killing stopped scaring me a long time ago. What scares me is doing nothing while folks get hurt. I can't live with that anymore." Elena took that in, feeling the weight of his words. "I don't want you to die for me. And I don't want you to die, period. So I guess we'll just have to make sure neither of those things happen." She almost smiled. "You make it sound so simple." "It is simple," he said. "Staying alive is the hard part." A quiet understanding had settled between them, solid as bedrock. They were a team now, for better or worse. In the days that followed, Elena found a new kind of purpose. She wasn't just keeping house, she was learning the ranch, top to bottom. Rowan taught her how to handle a horse without fear, and showed her the lay of the land from the property lines to where the cattle watered. One afternoon, riding the fence, she finally asked, "Why are you showing me all this?" He just looked at her, plain and simple. "Because you ought to know. This is your home now, same as mine. A body should know how to care for their home." "You really mean that, don't you?" "I don't waste words." She watched him sit his horse, natural as a sunrise. "Can I ask you something personal?" "Go on." "What was her name?" "Your wife." Rowan's hands gripped the leather reins tighter, but his gaze held steady. "Sarah. Our little girl was Emma. She was 6. "Tell me about them," Elena said softly. He was quiet for a long stretch. "Sarah was stronger than me where it counted. This hard country never made her hard. Emma," he said, his voice softening, "was her spittin' image. Followed me everywhere, full of questions." He paused. "I tried my best to answer 'em. And the man who did it? I told you. I found him. And I put a bullet right through his heart. Do you ever regret it?" "No," he said, quick and sure. "I regret not being there to protect my family. But I don't regret making that man pay." Elena thought of Clayton Voss, of the whole town watching him beat her down. "Sometimes," she said, "I think about going back to Stillwater and doing the same to him." "You think it would help?" Rowan asked. "Maybe. Or maybe it would just make me like him. Like you." "Yes," he admitted quietly. "Like me. And I'm telling you, Elena, it solves nothing. It just adds another ghost to the ones you're already carrying." "So what do we do? Let him win?" "No. We live. We build something better right here. We prove men like him don't get the final say. That's the only revenge that matters, Elena. Living well." His words turned over in her mind. A part of her wanted to cling to the anger, but a deeper part knew he was right. A week later, trouble came riding in fast. Elena was in her new garden patch when she heard a horse coming hard. She straightened up, her hand finding the knife she always carried now. A lean, weathered cowboy pulled his horse up short as Rowan stepped out of the house, rifle in hand. "Caleb Rowan?" the man gasped out of breath. "That's me. Name's Tom Fletcher. I worked for the Circle D south of Stillwater. I rode all night." "What's wrong?" Fletcher shot a look at Elena, then back to Rowan. "Clayton Voss bought the ranch 3 days ago. Started firing anyone who wouldn't swear loyalty to him. Before I left, I heard him talking to some hard cases he brought in from New Mexico." "Heard what?" "He's coming for you." "And for her," Fletcher said, nodding at Elena. "Says he's going to make an example out of y'all to show the territory what happens when folks cross him." Rowan's face was a stone mask, but his knuckles went white on the rifle. "When?" "Soon. A few days. He's gathering men." Fletcher met Rowan's gaze. "Sir, I know what Voss is. I couldn't just ride off without warning you. You took a hell of a risk coming here." "Some things are worth it," Fletcher said, then looked at Elena with shame in his eyes. "Ma'am, I was in town that day. I saw what he did. And I did nothing. I'm here to make that right, if you'll have me." Rowan studied him for a long moment. "You know what that means? Voss will come after you too. He's already got me on his list. Might as well be for a good reason. Can you shoot?" "Well enough. Take orders?" "Yes, sir." Rowan gave a slow nod. "All right, then. Put your horse up and come inside. We've got things to discuss." As Fletcher walked his horse to the barn, Elena stepped closer to Rowan. "How many men you figure he'll bring?" 10, maybe more if he's smart. And there's 3 of us." "3's better than 2, Rowan said, his eyes scanning the ranch. "And we got the high ground. This place was built to be defended. If we're smart, numbers won't matter as much." "You sound like you've done this before." "More times than I care to remember." He looked her square in the eye. "This is going to be bad, Elena. If you want to leave, now's the time. Fletcher can get you somewhere safe." "No," she said, cutting him off. "I'm staying." Her voice grew stronger. "This is my home. You said so yourself. I'm done running from men like Clayton Voss." A flicker of pride crossed Rowan's face. "Then we'd best get ready." The next 3 days were a blur of work. Fletcher rode the property line looking for weak spots. Elena stockpiled food, water, and ammunition. They moved anything that could burn and filled barrels with water. Rowan took Elena out back and taught her to handle a rifle. Her shoulder was bruised and her hands shook at first, but she gritted her teeth and kept at it. The weapon started to feel like a part of her arm. "You're a natural," Fletcher told her, watching her put 3 shots close together. "Most folks flinch. You don't." "I learned not to flinch a long time ago," she answered quietly. At night, they sat around the kitchen table making plans. "They'll try to pin us down, surround us," Rowan said, sketching a map. "If they do that, we're finished." "So we don't let them," Fletcher said. "We hit them on the approach." "That's risky," Rowan countered. "Everything about this is risky," Elena spoke up. "But sitting here like ducks in a pond seems worse." Rowan nodded. "Agreed. But we need to know when they're coming." "I'll ride out tomorrow," Fletcher offered. "Scout the trail. Do it. And be careful." The next morning, as Fletcher rode into the dawn, Rowan came to stand beside Elena. "Are you scared?" she asked. "Yes," he said without hesitation. "Fear keeps you alive, long as you control it." "I think about your little girl," she said. "How scared she must have been." His jaw tightened. "Every day. But I can't change what happened. All I can do is try to stop it from happening to someone else." "Is that what I am to you? A second chance?" He turned and his eyes were full of a raw emotion she hadn't seen before. You ain't a second chance, Elena. You're your own chance. A person with your own life. But helping you, protecting you, well, maybe that's my second chance. A chance to be the man I should have been 8 years ago. She reached out and took his hand. His palm was rough and calloused, but warm and strong. You are a good man, Caleb Rowan. He gave her hand a gentle squeeze. Let's just make sure we live long enough for it to matter. Fletcher returned near sunset, riding his horse hard. The news was all over his face before a word was spoken. They are coming, he said. I saw them about 10 miles south. 12 men armed for a fight. They will be here by tomorrow afternoon. 12, Rowan said quietly. Voss is not taking any chances. There is more. I recognized some of them. These are not ranch hands. They are hired guns, professional killers. A cold dread filled Elena. He is not planning to arrest me. He is planning to kill us all. That is what it looks like, Fletcher said, his face a grim mask. I am sorry I brought this to your door. You did not bring it? Rowan said. Voss did. And now we are going to deal with it. Listen to me, both of you. What is coming is going to test us. You will be scared. You will want to run. But if we stand together, if we are smart and brave, we have a chance. Not a good one, but a chance. What is the plan? Elena asked. Rowan's smile was pure steel. We make them regret ever coming here. They spent the evening preparing, working in silence. Elena cleaned weapons and checked every bullet. Fletcher tended the horses, ready for a fast retreat if it came to that. Rowan walked the property, memorizing every rock and every tree. As darkness fell, they gathered inside and barred the doors. No one even thought about sleep. They just sat at the table, a single lamp burning between them, and waited for the dawn. In the quiet of the early morning, Elena finally spoke. If I do not get another chance to say it, thank you. Thank you for believing I was worth fighting for. You are worth fighting for, Fletcher said. I am just glad I get the chance to prove it now. Rowan said nothing, but he reached across the table and covered her hand with his. And in that simple touch, Elena felt more seen and more human than she had in all the months since Daniel's death. Whatever the morning brought, she would not face it alone. Dawn arrived cold and clear. Elena stood at the window watching the light spread over the hills, a rifle resting on her shoulder. Behind her, Rowan and Fletcher moved with a quiet purpose, getting ready for the fight. None of them had slept, but the exhaustion was a distant thing now. Coffee is ready, Fletcher said, handing her a tin cup. It smelled strong and bitter. Real cowboy coffee, boiled long enough to peel paint. Thank you, she said, feeling the warmth in her hands. How long do you think we have? An hour, maybe 2? Depends on when they decided to move out. He looked out the window with her. It is a beautiful morning for what is coming. Is it always like this waiting? It is the worst part. Once it starts, your body just takes over. But the waiting, that is when your mind tries to convince you of all the ways you can die. Elena sipped the coffee. I am not afraid of dying. Not anymore. Everything since Stillwater has been borrowed time. Voss took everything from me except my life. He is not getting that without a fight. Fletcher looked at her with admiration. Rowan was right about you. You have got iron in your soul. I have just got nothing left to lose. Sometimes they look the same. Rowan joined them, holding his own cup. In the morning light, she could see the weariness in his eyes, but also a hard focus. I want you both to understand something, he said quietly. When they come, there will be a moment you think we cannot win. When the odds feel impossible. That is when men like Voss win. Not because they are stronger, but because good people give up. He looked at each of them. I need you to promise me you will not give up no matter what. I promise, Elena said without hesitation. Same here, Fletcher added. We are in this to the very end. Good. Rowan put down his cup. Then let us make sure that end is not today. They took their positions as the sun climbed. Fletcher went to the barn loft with a rifle, giving him a clear view of the approach. Elena was stationed at the front window of the house where the stone walls offered protection. Rowan took his spot on the porch behind a water trough he had reinforced with wood. "Remember what I taught you," he told Elena. "Breathe steady, aim for the center, and if they break through, you run out the back. You ride for the federal marshal in Austin and you tell him everything. I am not leaving you. You will if I tell you to. That is the deal, Elena." She wanted to argue, but the look in his eyes told her he meant it. "All right, but it will not come to that." "No," he agreed. "It will not." He gave her shoulder one firm squeeze, then moved to his position. And then they waited. The riders appeared just after 9, a dark line moving against the brown hills. Elena counted them. 12, just as Fletcher had said. They rode in a loose formation, confident men who did not expect a real fight. Clayton Voss was out front. Even from far off, you could tell it was him by the fine horse he rode and the way he sat on it like a king. The sight of him sent a hot bolt of rage through Elena. "Steady," Rowan called from the porch. "Do not let him see he gets under your skin." Elena took a deep breath. She found the calm center he had taught her. The anger was still there, but now she was in control of it. The riders stopped about 100 yards out. Voss dismounted and walked forward alone. He stopped at what he figured was a safe distance. "Caleb Rowan, I know you can hear me." Rowan stood up slowly, using the water trough as cover. "I hear you. Then you know why I am here. Send out the woman, and this can end peacefully." "You are right about that," Rowan called back. "You turn around and ride out of here, and we can all go on living." Voss laughed, a sound that carried across the open space. "You always did have a sense of humor. But you are not in a position to be making demands. I have 12 men. What do you have? Those are not winning odds. Depends on what you call winning. I plan on being here when the sun goes down. Can you say the same?" "My patience has limits." Voss's voice turned hard. "The woman is a criminal. She assaulted me, and she stole from me. I have every right to take her back. You have every right to go to hell," Rowan shot back. "Elena Moore stays right here. Anyone who tries to take her will answer to me." Big words from a man hiding behind stone walls. Not hiding, Voss, waiting. There is a difference. Voss was quiet for a moment, likely recalculating. "You really want to die for a woman you barely know? For a woman who is nothing to you? She is more than nothing. She is someone who deserves better than what you did. And I am done standing by while men like you hurt people just because you can." Noble. Stupid, but noble. Voss turned and walked back to his men. "Last chance, Rowan. Send her out, or we are coming in to get her. Come on ahead." Rowan's voice was hard and clear. "But you had better bring more men." Voss got on his horse and waved his men forward. They spread out, forming a wide circle around the ranch. They were professionals, just as Fletcher had warned. "Here we go," Rowan said quietly. "Remember, controlled fire. Make every single shot count." The first bullet kicked up dirt 20 feet short of the house. They were testing, trying to draw our fire. Fletcher answered from the barn. One of the riders cried out and grabbed his shoulder, wheeling his horse away. First blood. "That's close enough, you hear?" Fletcher's voice boomed. Right then, all hell broke loose. Voss's men answered with a storm of gunfire. Bullets smacked into the stone house and splintered the barn's old wood. The racket was something fierce, a constant crackle of angry lead. Elena dropped below the window, her heart pounding like a drum. She'd heard gunfire in the war, sure, but it was never pointed square at her. This was personal, a terrifying wall of sound meant to end her right then and there. Rowan's voice cut through the noise, calm and steady. "Elena, pick a target. Make every shot count." She took a breath and brought the rifle up, looking down the long barrel at the men spread out below. One fellow was using his horse for cover, inching closer to the house. Elena aimed just ahead of him like Rowan taught her and pulled the trigger. The rifle kicked hard. The man's horse bucked and he tumbled off. He scrambled behind a water trough so she couldn't tell if he was hit. No time to wonder, though. Another one was riding toward the barn. She tracked him, fired, and missed. She adjusted her aim and fired again. This time her bullet found his leg. He went down hard and his horse bolted. "Good shot," Rowan called out. He fired twice, quick as a snake, and another of Voss's men just dropped. The attack got hotter. Voss's men had their bearings now and were pouring lead right where they were hidden. Elena saw two men making a run for the barn, staying out of Fletcher's line of sight. "Fletcher!" she hollered. "Two coming up on your left!" His rifle cracked twice. One man fell for good. The other slumped against the barn wall where Fletcher couldn't see him. "Got one tucked in close," Fletcher yelled back. "Can't get a clean shot." Rowan cursed under his breath, trying to find a new angle. But the second he moved, bullets tore into the wood right beside him. The man at the barn pulled a bottle from his coat, a rag sticking out of the top. Elena's blood ran cold. They were fixing to burn them out. She didn't even think. She just stood, aimed, and fired all in one motion. The bottle shattered in the man's hand. He screamed as the kerosene splashed all over him, dropping to the ground and rolling around in the dirt. "Fine shot, Elena," Rowan said, his voice tight. But they were still in a bad spot. The 8 or 9 men left had found good cover and were laying down a steady fire. They had all the time in the world. They could just wait 'em out. "We can't just sit here," Fletcher called from the barn. "They'll wear us plumb out." Rowan knew he was right. Elena could see him doing the grim math in his head. "All right," he said. "Time for Plan B." "What's Plan B?" Elena asked. "We make 'em think they're winning," he explained. "They'd go quiet, make it seem like they were hurt or saving ammunition. Let Voss's crew get cocky and move in closer, then hit 'em hard when they were out in the open." "That's a tall risk," Fletcher said. "If they rush us all at once, we're done for." "Either way, we're done for if we don't do something," Rowan replied. "On my word, we all stop shooting, no matter what." The silence that followed was heavy and strange. For a long minute, nothing happened. Then Elena heard Voss shouting orders. She heard boots crunching on the gravel outside. She hugged the wall next to the window, rifle at the ready, and said a little prayer. Voss's men crept forward at first, but when no shots came, they got bolder. Elena saw them clear as day through the window. 4 heading for the house, 3 for the barn, all spread out and exposed. "Now!" Rowan roared. All 3 of them opened up at the same time. At that range, it was a slaughter. 2 men coming toward the house dropped right away. A third took a bullet to the chest and stumbled back. The last one dove for cover, but Rowan's second shot found him first. Fletcher did the same damage over at the barn. 2 men went down, and a third turned tail and ran. But their victory was cut short. The fella Elena had shot earlier, the one behind the water trough, had snuck around back. He busted through the rear door of the house, pistol already raised. Time just seemed to stop. Elena saw him plain as day, saw that pistol coming up to aim. She knew the rifle wasn't coming around in time. In that cold, clear moment, she was sure her life was over. Then Rowan was on him, a blur of motion too fast for a man his size. He slammed the gunman sideways into the wall. The pistol roared, deafening them both as the shot went wild into the ceiling. They fell in a heap of pure violence. The gunman was quick, but Rowan fought like a cornered animal protecting his own. His hands found the man's throat and he squeezed, his face a hard mask of fury. The man clawed and kicked, his face turning a dark purple before he finally went limp. Rowan held on for 5 more seconds just to be certain, then let go, and got to his feet, his hands trembling. "You okay?" Elena asked, her own voice unsteady. "Yeah," he said, handing her the dead man's pistol. "You keep this." Outside, the gunfire had gone quiet. Peeking through the window, Elena saw the last 3 of them scrambling for their horses while Voss hollered at their backs. He tried to rally them, but their nerve was gone. They came looking for sheep and found a pack of wolves instead. "They're running," Fletcher yelled from the barn. "Let 'em go," Rowan called out. "I reckon they got the message." Voss, however, wasn't running. He just sat on his horse at the edge of the property, his eyes burning with a pure, raw hatred you could feel from the porch. "This ain't over, Rowan," he screamed. "You hear me?" "It's over for today," Rowan yelled back. "And if you had any sense, it'd be over for good. Next time, you ain't leaving." Voss yanked his horse around and galloped off, disappearing after his men. In minutes, there was nothing left but 6 bodies in the yard, and a heavy silence. Elena's knees gave out and she collapsed to the floor, the pistol falling from her hand. The fight was gone from her, leaving her feeling hollowed out and shaky. Rowan knelt beside her. "Look at me," he said gently. "You did real good. Kept a cool head and made your shots count. You should be proud." "I killed men," she whispered, the words barely there. "You defended your home," he said. "That's not killing, Elena. That's surviving. Will it always feel like this? Like my stomach's inside out?" His face softened. "Most likely. That's what keeps you human. Worry when it stops bothering you." Fletcher walked in then, rifle in hand and grinning despite a bloody sleeve. "We did it. By God, we did it." "We won the first round," Rowan corrected him, his jaw tight. And he meant what he said. This ain't over. "So what's the plan?" Fletcher asked. Rowan stood up, his mind made up. "We take the fight to him. We end this before he comes back with more guns." "You mean ride into Stillwater?" Elena asked, looking up at him. "I mean, we show him his money can't stop a bullet. He thinks he's untouchable, but fear only works till someone calls your bluff." "That's a suicide run," Fletcher stated plainly. "The whole town's scared of him." "I'm going tonight," Rowan said, looking at them both, "with or without you." Elena pushed herself up on shaky legs. "I'm going," she said, her voice stronger now. "This is my fight more than anyone's. I'm done letting others settle my scores." Fletcher just gave a tired smile. "Well, I ain't come this far to quit. Besides, someone's got to keep you two out of trouble." "Then let's get ready," Rowan said. "We ride at sunset. We're going to give Clayton Voss a choice. Leave the territory for good, or face real justice." The afternoon was a grim blur of necessary work. They moved the bodies, cleaned their weapons, and readied the horses. It was hard, heavy work that kept their minds off what was coming. As the sun bled across the horizon, they stood together in the yard. "Last chance to back out," Rowan said quietly. "Not a chance," Elena answered. Fletcher just shook his head and checked his pistol one last time. "All right then," Rowan said, swinging up into his saddle. "Let's go finish this." They rode out into the growing dark, 3 lone figures heading toward a town that had forgotten what justice looked like. The ranch stood behind them, a silent testament to their refusal to break. Ahead lay Stillwater, where debts were about to be paid one way or another. The 3-hour ride was hard and fast, sticking to old cattle trails. Not much was said. They all knew the odds, but sometimes doing the right thing ain't about playing it safe. When they finally saw the lights of Stillwater nestled in the valley, the town looked almost peaceful. But Elena knew better. She knew that behind those warm lights was a sickness, the kind that grows when good folks choose to stay quiet. "Voss'll be at his saloon," Rowan said, gazing down at the town. "The Lucky Diamond." "That's the one," Elena confirmed. 2 stories on the corner of Main and 3rd. He runs his business from the rooms upstairs. Fletcher shifted in his saddle. "So we just ride in shooting?" "Nope," Rowan said. "We ride in talking. Give him one chance to walk away. I want the people of Stillwater to see we tried to do this without bloodshed." His eyes were like flint in the moonlight. "When this is done, there won't be no question who was in the right." They rode down into the nearly empty streets and tied their horses a couple doors down from the saloon. They walked up on foot. Through the big windows, Elena could see men drinking and playing cards. And at a corner table sat Clayton Voss, surrounded by the few men who'd survived the ranch. He spotted them the second they pushed through the doors. The whole room went deathly quiet. Voss's face cycled through shock, then rage, then something colder. He rose slowly, his hand dangling near his gun. His 3 men spread out, ready for a fight. "You've got a hell of a nerve," Voss said, his voice cutting through the silence. "Coming here after what you did." "What I did?" Rowan gave a short, hard laugh. "You brought 12 men to my home and I sent you running. That's on you for thinking your money made you bulletproof. You murdered 6 of my men. I defended my home. There's a world of difference." Rowan took a step forward and the other drinkers in the saloon started backing away toward the walls, clearing a path. "I'm not here to argue about what's past," Rowan continued. "I'm here to talk about your future." "I'm listening," Voss said, his hand still ready. "You've got 2 choices. 1, you pack your bags tonight, you leave this territory, and you never show your face here again. Or 2, I kill you right where you stand." The air in the room was so thick you could taste it. Elena felt the weight of her own pistol, watching as Fletcher squared up to cover Voss's men. Voss let out a cold, ugly smile. "You really think you can walk into my town, threaten me in my own place, and live to tell about it? You've lost your mind, Rowan." "Your town?" Rowan motioned to the silent crowd. "These people ain't yours. This town ain't yours. You just scared them into thinking so. And that ends tonight." "Big talk for a man who's outnumbered," Voss sneered. "Am I?" Rowan raised his voice, speaking to the whole room now. "How many of y'all really want this man here? How many of you figure this town is better off with him in charge? Instead of worse?" The room stayed quiet as a tomb. But Elena saw shame flicker in the eyes of the men lined up along the walls. They knew the truth, even if they were too scared to say it. "That's what I figured," Rowan went on. "Y'all are scared, and I get that. Fear's a powerful thing. But you can choose to let this man run your lives, or you can choose to make a stand right here." "They won't lift a finger for you," Voss said, his voice full of confidence. "They know what I do to folks who cross me." "Like Daniel Moore," Elena's voice cut through the silence. She took a step forward, her hand near her pistol. "Like my husband. He asked you for money you owed him, and you had him beaten so bad he died. Is that what happens?" Voss's eyes turned to slits. "Your husband was a weakling. He started a fight he couldn't finish. He asked for what was his." Elena's voice rose, hot with all the anger she'd held back for months. "And you murdered him for it. You tried to do the same to me, and you'll do it to anyone who won't get on their knees for you." "Watch your mouth, woman. You're in no place to be making threats." "I'm in the perfect place. I'm the one you tried to break who's still standing right here. What are you going to do, beat me again? You did your worst, and I'm still drawing breath." She looked from man to man, meeting the same eyes that watched her get beaten in the street. "Every one of you knows what he is. You all know the things he's done, and you all just turned your heads because it was easier than doing what was right." An old fella by the bar shuffled his feet. "Ma'am, you don't know how things are around here." "Oh, I know exactly how they are. I know that evil only wins when good people do nothing." She fixed her gaze back on Voss. "But it's your problem now. He'll keep taking from all of you until there's nothing left of this town but dust and fear." "Enough," Voss finally snapped, his calm mask cracking apart. "You want to die that bad? I'll be happy to help you along." He reached for his gun. Rowan was quicker. His pistol was out and aimed at Voss's heart in the blink of an eye. "Don't!" Voss froze, his hand hovering over his gun. His men had drawn their weapons too, but Fletcher had them covered with his rifle. The air went still, a heartbeat away from a bloodbath. "You won't shoot," Voss said, but his voice wavered just a little. "Not in cold blood, not with all these people watching." "You're right," Rowan said. "I won't shoot you in cold blood. But you pull that gun, and I'll put you down like a rabid dog. That ain't murder. That's settling a debt." There's no justice here. There's only power. Then let me show you what real power looks like. The saloon doors swung open. Sheriff Marcus walked in, flanked by 2 deputies. Elena's heart sank. If the law was on Voss's payroll, it was all over. But Marcus just stood there, looking bone-tired. When he spoke, his voice was heavy with regret. That's enough. Everyone, put your weapons down. Sheriff, Voss said, relief washing over his face. Thank heavens, these folks broke in here and threatened my life. I know what they did, Clayton. And I know what you did, Marcus said, his eyes locked on Voss. I know you sent those men to Rowan's ranch. I know you've been choking this town with fear for way too long. And I know I should have put a stop to you years ago. You can't be serious. I pay your salary. I work for the good people of this town, the sheriff said, his hand moving toward his own gun. And I'm done turning a blind eye while you run this place into the ground. Voss's face turned a deep shade of red. You old fool. You think you can cross me? I own you. I own this whole blessed town. You don't own people, Clayton. That's a lesson you never learned. Marcus looked over at Rowan. I can't let you kill him, but I can arrest him and take him to Austin. Let a real court sort him out. Is that good enough for you? Rowan thought on it for a long moment, his gun still steady on Voss. He was weighing the satisfaction of revenge against the hope of real justice. Finally, he slowly lowered his pistol. That's good enough, as long as he answers for everything he's done. He will. I give you my word, Marcus said, motioning to his deputies. Take him. You're all making a terrible mistake, Voss snarled as the deputies came for him. I've got lawyers. I've got money. I'll be out in a week, and every last one of you will pay. Maybe so, Marcus said, but at least we'll know we did the right thing. Voss's hired guns had already lowered their weapons. They were loyal to his money, not to him, and a man can't spend money when he's 6 feet under. As the deputies got close, Voss made his move. He was quicker than he looked. He drew his pistol and aimed it straight at Elena, murder in his eyes. If he was going down, she was going with him. Rowan fired. The shot was clean. The bullet tore through Voss's shoulder, spinning him around. His gun hit the floor with a clatter, and he collapsed, screaming curses and clutching his arm. He drew on her, Rowan said in a calm voice as he holstered his weapon. Everyone here saw it. We surely did, Marcus confirmed. Clear-cut case of self-defense. He looked down at Voss, who was writhing on the dirty floorboards. Get him to the dock, then lock him in a cell. We're doing this by the book this time. As the deputies hauled Voss away, his eyes met Elena's one last time. She stared right back, and she saw him realize that he had truly lost. She had beaten him, not with money or guns, but by simply refusing to be broken. After he was gone, you could feel the whole room breathe again. Men started talking in low voices, trying to make sense of what just happened. Sheriff Marcus walked over to them, the shame clear on his face. I owe y'all an apology, especially you, Mrs. Moore. I should have stood up for you and for your husband weeks ago. I let my fear make me a coward, and good people paid the price. Why now, Sheriff? Elena asked him. What made you change your mind? Tom Fletcher came to see me this morning. He told me what Voss was planning. Said if I didn't act, there'd be blood on my hands that would never wash away. He gave Fletcher a nod. He was right. I'm carrying enough regrets as it is. So what's next? Rowan asked. Now, Marcus said, looking around at the faces in the saloon, we try to make this town something better, and that starts with everyone in this room. You all stood by and let Voss run roughshod over this town. We all have to be better than that. We have to. An older woman who ran the general store spoke up, her voice shaky. We were scared. He had all that money, all those men. I know, Marcus said softly. Standing up to him wasn't easy. But that doesn't make it right that we didn't. We let fear make us quiet, and we can't let that happen again. The room fell silent as everyone took that in. Rowan gently touched Elena's arm. We should head out. Let these folks figure things out. But before they could go, Mary Alice Chen, the woman who ran the boarding house, hurried toward them. "Mrs. Moore, wait." Elena turned. The young woman's eyes were filled with tears. "I am so sorry," Mary Alice said. "When you came to me for help, I turned you away. I was scared of what Voss would do. I chose to be safe instead of being good, and I felt terrible about it every single day." "You weren't the only one," Elena replied gently. "Seems like this whole town made that same choice. But you're right. It doesn't make it okay. What matters is that we start making better choices now. Anything, if you ever need help, my door is always open. That's a promise." Then other folks started chiming in, offering their own sorry words. The butcher who had cut her off, the seamstress who had refused her work, even the minister who told her to leave town for the sake of peace. Shame was written all over their faces. Elena listened, and a strange feeling swelled up inside her. It was not forgiveness. It was way too soon for that. But maybe it was the start of something like it. They were just people, scared and weak, and they had made the wrong choice. Now they were trying to own up to it. "Thank you," she said at last. "I appreciate the apologies. I just hope you mean it, because talk is cheap. It is the doing that is hard." "We will do better," the minister promised, "starting right now, starting with seeing that real justice is done." Marcus nodded. "I will personally take Voss to Austin tomorrow. I will make sure he stands trial for everything. Your husband's death, what he did to you, the attack on Rowan's ranch." "You see that you do," Rowan said. His voice was like stone. "Because if he walks free, all this talk about change will not mean a blessed thing." "He will not walk," Marcus promised, and stuck out his hand. "You have my word." Rowan shook it, a small sign of trust. Then he turned to Elena and Fletcher. "Come on, let's go home." They stepped out into the cool night air, which felt like a blessing on Elena's face. Behind them, the saloon buzzed with talk as folks tried to figure out what had just happened. But Elena was not thinking about them. She was thinking about the ranch in the hills, the life she was starting, and the man who had stood up for her when no one else would. They rode for a long while without a word, each lost in their own thoughts. Fletcher was the first to speak. "Did we really do it? Did we win?" "We survived," Rowan corrected him. "Winning depends on what happens next. It depends on whether that town really changes, and if Voss truly faces the law." "But you gave them a chance," Elena said. "You could have finished him, but you let them do the right thing." "Yeah, well, we will see if they take it," Rowan said, his voice rough. But underneath, Elena could hear a sliver of hope. By the time they reached the ranch, the sky was turning that deep blue right before sunrise. They unsaddled the horses, bone-tired and quiet. Fletcher headed for the barn. "I will sleep in the loft again, if that is all right. I do not quite trust that this is over yet." "Good idea," Rowan said. "We will take turns on watch. 4-hour shifts until we know for sure that Voss is locked up." After Fletcher left, Elena and Rowan stood in the yard as the stars began to fade. She was running on empty, but she did not want the moment to end. "Thank you," she said softly, "for everything, for saving me, for giving me a home, for making me feel worth fighting for." "You were always worth fighting for," Rowan said. "You just needed someone else to see it. Why did you see it when no one else did?" He was quiet for a long time, looking off into the distance. "Because Sarah deserved someone to fight for her, and nobody did. I cannot let that happen again. I cannot live in a world where good people get hurt while bad men win just because everyone is too scared to do a thing." Elena finally understood. This was not just about her. It was about a man trying to save the ghost of someone he had lost long ago. But that did not make his kindness any less real. "I am not her," Elena said gently. "I am not Sarah. I know that. Do you? Because sometimes I think you see her when you look at me." Rowan turned to her, his eyes clear. "When I first saw you, maybe I did see her, But that is not who I see now. Now I see Elena Moore, a woman who walked through hell and came out tougher, a woman who learned to stand up for herself. You are not Sarah. You are you, and I am proud to know you. His words hit her hard, and tears welled up in her eyes. I was so broken when you found me, ready to just give up. But you did not, he said. You chose to live. That strength, that was all you, Elena. I just gave you a safe place to heal. She wiped her eyes, feeling a little embarrassed. What now? Assuming Voss actually goes to trial and gets convicted. What do we do? We keep building, he said, motioning to the ranch around them. I have been alone here for 8 years, just going through the motions. But having you and Fletcher here, it is starting to feel like a real home. Is that what you want? For us to stay? If it is what you want. I am not trying to replace what you lost. But if you want to build something new here, I would be honored to have you. Elena looked at the barn and the house, lit by the first rays of dawn. She thought about everything she had lost and everything she had found. I want to stay, she said. Not because I am scared, but because this feels right. It feels like I have finally found my place. A real smile changed Rowan's whole face. Then welcome home, Elena Moore. They stood there as the sun rose, painting the hills gold and pink. A feeling of peace settled over Elena. She had been beaten down and left for dead. But she had survived. More than that, she had fought back. Standing there in the morning light, she realized she was not a victim anymore. She was a survivor, and that made all the difference in the world. The next few weeks were spent waiting for news from Austin to see if justice would stick this time. Fletcher stayed on, proving to be a natural with the cattle. The three of them fell into a comfortable rhythm, building something solid together. Word from Sheriff Marcus came after 10 days. Voss was being held in a federal jail awaiting trial on a long list of charges. The evidence was strong, thanks to Elena and a dozen other folks from Stillwater who had finally found their voice. He is not getting out, Marcus wrote. His money cannot save him this time. Elena read the letter 3 times, hardly believing it. Is it real? She asked Rowan that evening on the porch. Do you think he will actually pay? I think we have done all we can, he said. The rest is up to the law. How do you feel? I do not know. Part of me wants to feel happy, but mostly I just feel tired. Like I have been carrying something heavy for so long, I've forgotten how it feels to put it down. Give it time, he said. Healing does not happen overnight. She knew he was right. The scars inside and out would take time to fade, but she also knew she was going to be all right. Maybe not today and maybe not tomorrow, but one day she would be whole again, and stronger for all of it. That night she dreamed of Daniel, but instead of seeing him weak and dying, she saw him as he was when they first met, young and full of hope. He smiled at her. You are going to be all right, he said. You are going to build a good life. I am so proud of you, Elena. She woke up with tears on her face, but her heart was at peace. That evening, she and Rowan sat on his porch, watching the sun dip below the hills. Do you think he'll really pay for it all? She asked. I reckon we've done all we can do, he said, looking at her. The rest is up to the law. How are you feeling about it? I don't know, she admitted. Part of me should be happy, but mostly I just feel worn out. Like I've been carrying something heavy for so long, I forgot how it feels to not have the weight. Give it some time. Healing doesn't happen overnight. She knew he was right. The scars from Voss, inside and out, would take a long while to fade. But she also knew she was going to be okay. Not today, and maybe not tomorrow. But one day, she would be whole again, and stronger for what she had endured. That night she dreamed of Daniel. He was young and smiling, the way he was when they first met. His voice was soft when he spoke. You're going to be just fine, he said. You're going to build a good life. I am so proud of you, Elena. She woke up with tears on her cheeks, but her heart was finally at peace. 6 weeks after that terrible day, a rider came up the road. He was carrying a big official envelope with the court's seal on it. Elena was in her garden, hands full of dirt from planting winter greens, when she saw him. Her heart gave a hard thump against her ribs. This was it. Rowan came out from the barn just as the courier got off his horse, and Fletcher walked down from the north pasture. They all stood there together while Rowan broke the seal and read the letter, his face like stone. "Well?" Elena finally asked, unable to take the quiet no more. Rowan looked up, and his eyes were fierce and pleased. "Guilty," he said, "on every last charge. 20 years in the territorial prison with no chance of getting out early. They've seized everything he owns to pay back the folks he wronged." He handed the letter to her. "It's over, Elena. He's finished." She took the paper with a shaky hand and read the words for herself. 20 years. Clayton Voss would be an old, broken man by the time he got out. The thought should have made her feel triumphant. Instead, she just felt empty. Relieved, yes, but empty. Like she'd been holding herself together with wire for so long. She wasn't sure what to do now that she could finally let go. "You all right?" Rowan asked her, his voice soft. "I think so," she said. I spent so much time being afraid of him and hating him that I'm not sure who I am without it." She looked down at the letter. "Does that make any sense?" "Perfect sense," he said. "You've been doing nothing but surviving. Now you get to actually live. That's going to take some getting used to." Fletcher cleared his throat. "I reckon I should give you two a minute. I'll just, go check on them fences again." He left them be, and Elena was grateful for it. She looked at Rowan, really looked at him, and saw the same deep relief in his eyes that she felt in her own heart. This fight had been his, too. "Thank you," she said, "for everything. For seeing me when nobody else did. For fighting for me when I couldn't. For giving me a place to get strong again." "You were always strong, Elena. You just needed a moment to remember it." They stood under the afternoon sun, the letter a bridge between their past and their future. And a truth bloomed in Elena's heart, one she'd been too scared to admit. She didn't want to leave this ranch. She didn't want to rebuild her old life. She wanted to stay right here, with this man who saw her for who she truly was, but she had no idea if he felt the same. "What happens now?" she asked, her voice barely a whisper. "Now that the danger is gone?" Rowan was quiet for a spell, choosing his words with care. "That all depends on what you want. You are a free woman now, Elena. Free to go anywhere and build any life you choose. And what if the life I want is right here?" His gaze met hers, and she saw a flicker of hope in his eyes. "Then I would be mighty grateful to have you. For 8 years, this was just a house. But with you here, it has started to feel like a home, and not just as a housekeeper." The words tumbled out before she could stop them, a mix of boldness and fear. Rowan stepped closer, his voice thick with emotion. "You know it is more than that. It has been for a good while. I tried to keep my distance. You had been through hell, and the last thing you needed was some broken-down rancher making your life more complicated." "What if I want complicated?" "Are you sure about that?" "Because I need you to be sure, Elena. I am not an easy man. I have got ghosts that will never fully leave, and I have done things I am not proud of. If you stay, if we become something more, you need to know what you are getting into." She reached out and took his hand, feeling the rough calluses and the strength there. "I know exactly what I am getting. I am getting a man who saved my life when he did not have to. A man who reminded me how to be strong, who made me feel worthy when the world said I was not. That is what I am getting into, Rowan, and I want it if you do." He looked at her, and she could see the struggle in his eyes. The fear of moving on, of betraying the memory of his first family by finding a new happiness. The survivor's guilt that haunted him. The terror of opening his heart to loss one more time. Then, something inside him settled. A decision was made. "I do," he said quietly. "I want it more than I have wanted anything in 8 long years, but I am scared, Elena. Scared of losing someone I care about all over again. Scared I will not be enough for you. We are both scared. But maybe that just means we are brave enough to try. She squeezed his hand gently. I'm not asking you to forget Sarah and Emma. I would never do that. I'm just asking for a chance to build something new, right alongside what you had before. Rowan pulled her into his arms, holding her tight, and Elena felt a final knot of tension inside her release. This was home, not the ranch. This man's arms. We will take it slow, he murmured into her hair. Figure it all out as we go. No pressure. That sounds perfect. They stood like that for a long time, holding on as the sun dipped lower in the sky. Eventually, Fletcher returned, took one look at them wrapped up together and broke into a wide grin. Well, it is about damn time. I was starting to think you two would dance around each other forever. Rowan actually laughed, a real warm sound like sunlight breaking through the clouds. Fletcher just shook his head. So, what is the plan? Do I need to start looking for my own little bachelor cabin? You are not going anywhere, Elena said, her tone firm. This ranch needs 3 people to run it, and you are part of this now. Part of our family. The word hung in the quiet air. Family. It felt bold to say, but looking at these 2 men who had stood by her, Elena knew it was the truth. They were her family, built from loss and survival. Family, Fletcher repeated, his voice soft and his eyes suspiciously bright. I like the sound of that. The weeks that followed were the best of Elena's life. With the trial over and the threat gone, she could finally breathe. She threw herself into the work of the ranch, learning everything Rowan and Fletcher could teach her. She started taking long rides by herself, just to feel the freedom of it. She planted a small garden, planning for a summer harvest. She even started writing again, a passion she had abandoned after Daniel died. And piece by piece, she and Rowan built something real. It was not dramatic. It was built in quiet moments, in shared smiles over morning coffee, in conversations that lasted late into the night. It was the comfortable silence of 2 people who understood each other without words. One evening, about 3 months later, they sat on the porch as the first stars appeared. Rowan reached over and took her hand. I have been thinking, he said, about the future, about what I want this place to be. And what is that? I want it to be more than just a ranch. I want it to be a place where people who have been broken can come to heal. A place where someone running from a bad spot can find safety and a chance to start over. He looked at her, his meaning clear. The way you did? Elena's throat felt tight. That is a beautiful idea, Rowan. I cannot do it by myself. It would take all 3 of us to make it work. But I think it is important. Maybe this is what the ranch was always meant for. Then let us do it. Let us build that place. She squeezed his hand. We can start small. Maybe take on 1 person at first. Someone Fletcher hears about in town. Give them honest work and a place to get their feet back under them. You're sure? This will not be easy. Some of these folks will bring their own troubles, I am sure, because someone did it for me and it saved my life. Now it is our turn to do it for someone else. They started the very next month with a young woman named Sarah, who had run from a bad marriage in New Mexico. She was quiet and shy at first, but with time, patience, and plenty of open space, she slowly began to heal. The steady rhythm of ranch work began to mend her soul. Soon, a man named Marcus came along. He was free but had nowhere to go and knew nothing but the hard labor he'd been forced to do. Rowan showed him how to work with horses, and Elena saw him change into a man who understood his own value. Others followed. An orphaned boy, a woman who lost her town to outlaws, and a man who was starting over after a fire took everything. Each person brought their own heartache, and each one found a place to heal on that patch of Texas land. The ranch came alive. The old silence was replaced with voices at the dinner table and laughter from the new bunkhouse. Elena thrived, finding she had a knack for knowing what people needed. She became the very heart of their small but growing family. Through it all, her bond with Rowan grew stronger, deeper. It felt as natural as the sunrise. One spring morning she woke up and knew she could not imagine a life without him. They were married that fall, a year and a half after he first found her. The ceremony was simple, held right there in the yard. Fletcher stood as their witness while all the folks they had helped gathered around to celebrate. Sheriff Marcus even came from Stillwater to officiate. Rowan looked at her and said, "I never thought I would feel this kind of happiness again. You showed me that life keeps going, and loving someone new does not erase the old." Elena smiled back at him. "And you taught me I was worth saving. You showed me that strength is not about never falling, but about getting back up every single time." They kissed and the little crowd cheered. And what a cheer it was! For the first time since that terrible day in Stillwater, Elena felt pure joy. The years that followed were good ones. Their ranch prospered, becoming known far and wide as a place where broken people could become whole again. Some folks stayed for good, becoming part of the family. Others healed up and moved on, carrying with them a newfound strength. Elena never forgot the woman she once was, lying in the dirt and waiting to die. But she used that memory as fuel, making sure no one else would ever have to feel so alone. She and Rowan had 3 children, 2 girls and a boy. They raised them to be kind but tough, and to always stand up for those who could not stand up for themselves. Sometimes on a quiet evening they would sit on the porch together. They would remember how a single moment of courage had built a life neither could have imagined on their own. "Do you ever regret it?" Elena asked one night, her head on his shoulder. "Stopping in Stillwater that day, taking on my troubles when you already had so many?" Rowan answered without a pause. "Never. That was the day my life truly began again. That was the day I stopped just surviving." He held her close. "I love you, Caleb Rowan." She whispered, "I love you too, Elena. More than I can say." As the stars shone overhead, she thought about all the lives they had touched. She thought of Clayton Voss, growing old in a prison cell, and felt only pity. He had started with everything and wasted it on cruelty. She had started with nothing and built something that mattered. She even sent a silent thank you to Daniel, her first husband. He had brought her west, and in a roundabout way, he had brought her home. He gave her the strength to become the woman she was always meant to be. She only wished he could have been there to see the life she had built. More than anything, she looked toward the future. She thought of the children sleeping peacefully inside, and all the folks who would come to their door looking for help. Rowan felt her smile against his shoulder and asked, "What's on your mind?" She told him, "I'm just thinking that I should have died on that street. By all rights, I ought to be bones in a nameless grave long forgotten. But I'm not. I'm right here, happy and surrounded by people I love. Every single day since you pulled me out of that dirt has been a precious gift I never figured I deserved." "It was never undeserved," he said softly. "Maybe not," she whispered, "but it's still precious." She lifted her head and gave him a slow, sweet kiss. It was a kiss that tasted of gratitude, of love, and of the future they had built together from the ashes of their pasts. Elena Moore had been beaten down, broken, and left for dead. She had lost her husband, her home, and every last bit of her hope. The world tried to tell her she was worthless, a piece of trash to be thrown away. But she was a survivor. No, she was more than that. She found love again, built a whole new family, and made something truly good out of nothing at all. In doing so, she proved something powerful. It's the same lesson everyone learns when they come to the ranch. Nobody is worthless. Everybody deserves a second chance. Real strength is not about never falling down. It is about getting back on your feet no matter how many times you get knocked flat. Surviving the fight is not the end of the story. It is just the beginning. Elena Moore survived, and in doing so, she finally learned how to truly live. The ranch stood strong under that big Texas sky, a monument to everything she and Rowan had built. A stranger's kindness saved her. Now she spends her days paying that gift forward to others. That is real justice. That is how you heal. That is how you beat the cruelty of a hard world. You do not win by becoming hard yourself. You win by choosing every single day to stay soft where it matters most. You choose to be kind. You see people not for what they are, but for what they could be. You stand up when everybody else turns away. Elena Moore was knocked down hard, but she got right back up. And by getting up, she showed countless others that they could do it too. That was her victory. That was her triumph. And her story was a long way from over. This content was carefully researched, developed, and manually edited by our team to deliver meaningful stories with valuable life lessons. Every narrative is crafted to entertain, inspire, and empower our audience. We believe that great stories can change lives, and we are committed to bringing you content that matters. Thank you for being part of our community.